Welcome to another episode of Beta Talk. And this is the final episode in a season that's been sponsored by Primary Pro, which is an outside pipe lagging system. So thank you ever so much, Primary Pro. Very excited episode for this last one of the season because I've brought along my friends who are experts in this wonderful thing we all keep hearing, AI. Barrie and Amrit, well, I'll chat to you about what they do and how they come across me and what we're going to be doing at the installer show. So I'm very excited to introduce you to Barrie and Amrit. Amrit, who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you come across me, and what we're going to be doing at the installer show.
Thank you so much, Nathan, for having us on the podcast today. Yeah, just to introduce myself briefly. So I started my career with a PhD in chemical engineering in hydrogen technology, and became interested in sustainability pretty much at the beginning when a UN scientist came to our research group and told us that the world was beyond saving. So he said, "Don't even try, just give up, live your best life." Super depressing to hear at the outset of the journey. So decided pretty much at that point I wanted to step in and try and make a difference in the world. So finished my study, started working in the low carbon vehicle space, which is where I met the co-founder of my first startup. We had a battery innovation. It was all about making batteries more sustainable. Spent 7 years growing that business, so raised capital, grew the team, had projects going on all over the place. And then, middle of 23, we ended up selling that business to a partner in India who are using the technology for the micromobility sector. Took a little bit of time off after that to get over the trauma of it all and sort of figure out what was next. And the more I read about how much we need to decarbonize and the skills in particular that were needed for that, the more the gap became apparent to me. And I think there was one stat in particular, Nathan, I think I heard it on the podcast about how like the UK needs something like 10,000 installers in order to achieve the heat pump installation targets, and we have something like 3,000 that are currently on the road. So yeah, it was just eye-opening, and I figured there was something we could do about sort of making knowledge accessible and helping organizations to remember what makes them great in the first place, because we go through this sort of period of we learn something and then we move from an organization and we take that knowledge with us because it's not necessarily written down. And in this space, especially as people come to retirement age, with the experienced hands who just know everything, and the sort of new generation of apprentices and the new generation of people coming up, like the way of learning everything is different now. And so there's definitely an angle here. We can use tech to speed up the rate at which we can make heat pumps available in the market.
Mm. And Barrie, you come from a civil engineering background.
Yeah, that's right. So my background's one of civil engineering, doing a lot of large capital investment programs in and around the UK. Spent quite a lot of time at Heathrow Airport running logistics and warehousing and security, catering, a whole bunch of different activities. And then moved into software development and really applied a lot of what I'd learned from working with all manner of contractors and tools and trades to put software in their hands. That started as a delivery management system that then blossomed into a whole range of different technological suite of different solutions and security software. And then moved into fintech, where I realized actually that was a horrible industry. It's all about making banks more money. I lost all my sense of purpose. And then a friend of mine introduced me to Amrit. So I joined him with the battery venture. And then it sort of blossomed from that point in Lorefuly in the form of actually knowing how to interact with people who are doing jobs in the field and what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how traditional software sort of doesn't really accommodate that sense because it's more designed for those who are in the office and less about those who are in the field. So as Amrit and I and Paul, our other co-founder and CTO, started going through what is it we want to do, it really sort of manifested from the lives that we've lived in both development of hardware, the installation of that hardware, being out in the cold, wet, windy situations and facing a problem and going, how do we resolve this in order to sort of produce what we now have with Lorefuly?
And Barry's actually he's underplaying it a little bit, Nathan, but he's actually done this not just in the UK and like a farm up in Scotland, for example, or in sort of the wetlands of Norfolk. But he's actually done this as well in sub-Saharan Africa. So he went out to sub-Saharan Africa and installed a whole battery repurposing facility. They're trying to do that with limited internet connectivity, with kind of all of the sort of challenges in the field. Yeah, I mean, it just gives you a new appreciation of what people are experiencing when they're out there in the world.
Fascinating stuff. And you guys, we're going to explain what we got something quite exciting that we've teamed up with Installer Show to do, haven't you? And I mean, but so we've teamed up. So how did you guys come across me? I mean, you're obviously listening to the podcast, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right, Nathan. And I think I saw some of your posts on LinkedIn. There were lots and lots of people interacting, and then I looked more and more into your profile, into what you're doing, and I saw that people like Amber Rudd were consulting you for advice and sort of various footballers, and yeah, just felt the urge to reach out and see if there was something we could potentially do together to increase that rate. And it's been an absolutely phenomenal relationship, I think, since that very first conversation.
And one of the things you and I will be doing, so I do a live audience podcast at the Installer Show, and you're on my panel this year, because it's the Installer Show's sort of 10th anniversary. So we're going to be looking at the past, the present, and the future. And you're my guest to sort of kind of look at the future, because I think AI, well, we know AI is going to be a big part of the future, and you're sort of my experts now around that. And last year I did a live audience participation podcast there with my friends at Nesta, because I was sort of alpha testing some of the what were called LMMs. I think I've got that right. I'm all new to this AI stuff, but I tested with my students this large language model. I think I've got that right. And you picked up on that. I know. I also did with as part of that podcast around the survey. So Emma Bowen and I had got Nesta involved with us to conduct a very large survey around heating installers, and we're kind of going to be using AI in real time for a survey at this Installer Show. So Barry, you've been doing a lot of work around this with the installer team. So just tell the audience what we're going to be doing.
Well, that's right. So what Lorefuly does is use a type of artificial intelligence called Retrieval-Augmented Generation, or RAG. And what that means is it confines to just specific documents that have been told to go and look at. So what we'll be doing with the exhibitors is asking them to submit their materials, their brochures, their data sheets, their handbooks, whatever it is that is publicly facing, so that attendees can open up Lorefuly, type in their own question, and be guided towards materials that answer that question. So that might be a new, you want to know about heat pumps, who's exhibiting their heat pumps at the show. It would come back with, well, the following companies are exhibiting, and here is the citation that takes you to those documents. So that's one aspect of find information at your fingertips using artificial intelligence. The other side of what we do, though, is really about that knowledge capture. So you've got all this documented material, but what about the thoughts? What about the wisdom that individuals have inside their minds? And what is it that they could bring to not just their peers, but the next generation? And how do we capture that, store it, and make it accessible to help other people answering those questions? So we'll be doing a bit of demonstration of that capability at the show by setting, I think, approximately 30 different types of questions, which will go and cover a number of different topics. And we'll be encouraging people to open up their phone, answer a question using their voice. Again, going back to how do people want to interact? How do people use it in the field? And, not everybody has quick thumbs like some of those that of the younger generation, shall I say. And so how can we encourage people to share? And so we'll be doing a lot of material, a lot of work on how to answer those questions, and really encouraging a lot of people to get involved with sharing their thoughts, which can then go back into, as you say, Nathan, that survey aspect of what's really important to the industry. How does this move us forward? What are your thoughts and opinions, so that we can actually build that into something that's far more comprehensive about the state of the industry and where it's going.
Yeah, and
And
one, sorry, Amrit.
yeah, no, I was just going to say, just adding to that as well, there will be prizes as well. So as people engage and they share their knowledge, what we're really keen to do is make sure that we want to really capture the zeitgeist that's in the room. We want to get sort of the essence of what people are thinking. They're seeing the future of installation being where they see kind of the world going, and sort of getting everyone's voices heard in the way they naturally speak, so that we can bring that all together and make that available for the community is a core part of what we're looking to achieve.
That's brilliant. So, because one of the challenges, one of the reasons I started this podcast was to disseminate and amplify the voice of on-the-ground engineers, and people have took that on board. You know that these on-the-ground engineers, these voices are really, really important. So my friends in the civil servants I know at the Department of Energy, and people at Nesta, we recognise there's a challenge to get voices from these on-the-ground engineers, because let's say, for instance, consultations. You know, the consultations that engineers don't have the time to sort of fill them in really. And even when I did the survey with Nesta, you know, we offered lots of prizes to sort of try and create engagement, because you know, engineers are time poor. But what I like about this is, you know, because when you're sitting down at a computer and typing in responses to questions, that's time consuming. But at the show, what we're doing, and it links into beta talk, and talk being their operative word. So they're literally going to be able to, you know, come to our stand, come to the manufacturers' stands that sort of going to work alongside with us, and we'll talk about that more in a minute, and literally just talk into their devices. So they could talk into the devices. AI is going to sort of then transcribe that and do all the wonderful things that Barry will sort of talk more about. So it really sort of fits in. And, you know, I kind of like this idea that it's a beta talk, sort of another beta talk survey powered by Lorefuly, because you are my AI experts. So Barry, tell us a little bit more about what we're going to be doing with that sort of talk and capturing these responses. And it doesn't just have to be the engineers as well, because it can be everyone involved. It can be the manufacturers at the show. It can be other entities.
Absolutely. So what we're really interested in doing is helping. Uh, Attendance at the show is tight. You know, most people only go for a single day. And when they get there, there's obviously got to get through the queues and get to where they want to go. And you're not really ever going to be able to see it all. And we think that's a massive shame that there's a lost opportunity within that. So one of those options of sort of going through and adding your own materials is also, you could also ask us to include your own question in that, so that you can help with a bit of product discovery, a bit of market research perhaps, and actually ask your audience, or ask your customers who are in and around the show, what it is that they would like to see in your next product, in your next feature sets that you must include, or what's the blocker for adoption. So there's a number of different ways that we can encourage everybody to engage with the system, and even down to simple things like some potential questions here is, what's the one tool you couldn't do without? What tool is just hype? That sort of wisdom that you would be able to just impart and share, something very simple, but actually turns into something quite powerful when you start seeing the aggregation of who said what about what sort of area.
And of course, the other thing is, because when you answer a question, like let's say when I did that particular survey, we thought really hard and long about what sort of questions we'd ask. And of course, then people respond to that actual question. But when you get a prompt like the questions you've just said, people can, if they're like me, they can waffle on. But of course, all that is data that's then being that we can use, isn't it?
Yeah, so we'll be so when you speak into Lorefuly, it will transcribe it live onto the screen so that you can then see what you've said. You've then got a choice. You can submit it or not submit it, depending upon how you're feeling. But we would obviously encourage it to be submitted. But off the back of that, we can then start doing things like sentiment analysis. So where does the general feel of the answer to this question lie? Is it mainly positive or negative? We can start to extract some key words that might be coming up in a number of different threads. And all of this, if I bring this back to its core purpose, is really about identifying how do you take inputs, identify the keywords, sort them and structure them in the right way so that when somebody's tackling a technical problem in the field, they have a fault on a inverter of model type XYZ, that they're able to say these words and the AI go through and filter from the massive database and go, right, here is the most relevant solutions to this problem prompted by those keywords. So a little bit of what we're doing at the show is soft introductions, nice, easy questions, but really it's exactly the same application that can be put into corporate businesses where they've got their own knowledge sets and their own teams that can then contribute that knowledge into that central area and help their peers even when they themselves may not be available.
Amrit, I did a LinkedIn post yesterday, and it garnered quite a lot of attraction. The post was about AI, and I had a lot of private messages and some messages on the actual post, and what it sort of made everyone aware. This is going to be a really really big thing. I think well, in all industries, but I think it's going to be a big thing in our industry. I think it's going to become quite competitive. We've had competitive industries in the past. So the magnetic filter, once upon a time, there was none, then there was one, and then all of a sudden there was about 50 OEMs. I mean, this whole thing of AI and LLMs, I keep getting that wrong, is going to be a competitive market, I think. And I suppose there's risks with that because some probably won't be as good as others. And I was reading just recently something about hallucinations. I mean, just describe. It might benefit listeners if we actually describe what AI is. Is it different to machine learning, the things like this? Because I know people like myself sometimes get confused. And then obviously, what are hallucinations, and can LLMs sometimes get things wrong? And how do we, BetaTeach and Lorefuly, overcome that?
Yeah, of course, Nathan. Yeah. So when it comes to something like a hallucination, what what's happening there is that the AI model, I mean, the AI models are trained on so much data, Nathan. I think there's estimations at the moment that we've pretty much run out of all human generated content for them to be, for the underlying models to be trained on. And so like when a question is asked, what can happen is the AI sometimes will make up an answer because it doesn't necessarily know the right answer, or it doesn't, there may be too many sources that it doesn't know which one to pick from. And so there's always that sort of health warning or health label that sort of needs to be thought about when it comes to AI in general, which is, this is giving me an answer, but it's not necessarily the right answer. Actually, this is a really interesting topic because when you think about like the ethics of AI and sort of what it's being trained on, if you, as with any data model, if you put rubbish in, you get rubbish out. And there is a lot of work that's shown that actually the sort of views that AI put forward can have particular political leaning, or sometimes it can have sort of racial undertones to it as well. So there is all of this there that needs to be sort of thought about as well. I mean, so like when it, what I would say is like if you are using AI, and this is just in general, always sort of keep your critical thinking lens on. Am I getting the right answer? Ask it for a source, and then often you find that it will give you a web link to something it's found, and it may not be, you may not even mention the topic you're talking about. So I remember I was doing a piece of research. I was trying to find a stat on a particular topic, and I asked one of the large language models, can you give me a statistic about this topic? And it came back very confidently and said, yeah, this is 1,000 per month. And then I asked it for a source, and clicked on the sort of links. I could not find a reference anywhere that was credible. The good thing about the type of AI that we're using, as Barry mentioned, it's a retrieval-augmented generation. So it's not pulling anywhere from the internet, only the sort of sources that we give it. So the information that's within that database. What I'm particularly interested in is the sort of how we can use AI to augment what people are doing in the field. There's a lot of worry about AI taking jobs, but the reality is we still need physical hands and physical kind of being in order to install, maintain, make things work. Nothing can replace that. Robotics are not close to being able to sort of do that. And so, like, how can we use AI to speed up the rate at which this is happening and make that knowledge sharing faster? I remember we did a study recently with a large OEM, and we found that sort of it's not as simple anymore as saying read the manual. Like this, that's the common, senior engineer to young engineer, senior technician to young technician. Have you looked in the manual? Actually, what we found in that study is that the piece of information you could need is potentially in one of 30 different places outside of the manual. Because like it's that classic, if I say to you, Nathan, oh, what do you know about a particular type of heat pump? Some of that information will be in the manual, but you'll also say, actually, I know that there's this website, this person's got a really good review, I've got a podcast episode on it. Like there's all these other bits of information that are highly relevant to that topic. And so I think making that sort of information surfaceable, making information more available is something that potentially is huge.
And I think that's where you in your role starts to come into play, because one of the things that we will always say is we're not experts in every single product and renewable system, and we can't sit there and say this is correct for that thing. We don't have that competency within our company. So what we're looking to do is partner up with businesses and influencers such as yourself, Nathan, to curate information, curating that information pack that can then be deployed into specific company instances or environments, whereby that knowledge set that has come from that curator can then be leveraged by that company in order to ensure that they have high quality, correct, and relevant information within their own AI system, and that it's not leveraging something like a chat GPT, which is going off to the wildness of the internet, pulling out a random comment from somebody who you don't know, have no real experience of their qualifications and what's the specific scenarios, etc., that they've provided an answer to, that just might happen to be the right answer. So it's all about making sure that we are the gatekeepers to providing high quality information, and making sure that things like manuals, data sheets, and the true sources of information for this industry, the renewables energy sector, are all available to those who are in the field and need that information, and then need a mechanism to say, I have this problem, help me go through all of these 30 different plus sources of where the answer could lie, and present it to me on the page, so that we can make the decision based upon our expertise and competence as to whether or not that's the right or wrong thing to do.
So it's created content. I like that. It's a little bit of alliteration there, isn't it? Created content. So it's got authority, hasn't it? Right. So rather than like what you said, Amrit, it's sort of these LLMs looking at the whole internet, we can build authoritative creative content, and I suppose that's the sort of value I can add, because I'm sort of I mean, I don't think I started the podcast for this reason, but I've all of a sudden ended up, these high
Yeah.
flying people in the.
That's exactly it, Nathan. And this is one of the reasons why we were so excited to partner with you, because you are an authoritative figure. You've got this vast collection of resources, in like ideas, people that you've spoken to. You've got I think it was resources into courses, if I remember that correctly. Like there's all of these like really
Courses,
great things.
course. Oh yeah, resource courses to resources, which
Sorry,
is
courses to
it's not my term. It was a famous educationalist, but yeah, I'm possibly the first person to use it in this industry. Yeah. So
Yeah.
a resource basically, you don't need to sometimes go on a course to get the job done. You just need a resource at the moment in time to get the job done, and this is where this sort of technology can help. But it has to be very accurate. That's the thing, you see, and that's where it has to be that authoritative, which is where
And
some of the manufacturers out there, who are there are definitely manufacturers out there who are helping get good. I mean, one of the problems is that the government have realised, and people like the BIT, Behavioural Insights, Nesta have realised, there's so much information now being pumped out, so much. And of course, the worry there is, not a lot of it is that accurate, and it's not being purposely put out to be inaccurate. I don't think. I mean, it's a small minority arguably is, but it's just there's so much content out there, so much information out there. So come back to that word curated. It's possible to create some extremely accurate, beneficial information that's very, very easy to access, isn't it?
yeah, that's right, Nathan. And in particular, what I really love about what you're doing is you are bringing together installers and you're trying to create a lot more collaboration in the space, making knowledge available. But that's something which I think, we've got the perfect application use case for AI. If we can help people do their jobs better, do their jobs easier, make a less stressful environment, but actually get more technology out there and more heat pumps installed, it's good for the environment, it's good for society, it's good for the installer. So let's do that with the highly curated resources, the sort of expertise you've got. Imagine if everyone had that in their pocket. They could, as they're doing an install, the 5 common problems with heat pump install, they can ask that question and get that right there as they're doing the job.
We did something exciting with my podcast, didn't we? Barry, you could tell people what we did.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've as a bit of a demonstration to you some time ago, we took the transcripts from all was it 150, is this 153, something along those lines, podcasts, and put them into Lorefuly and then gave it back to you to sort of say, have a chat with yourself. And it's been incredibly useful from my side, at least, to sort of get to know you a lot more, get to pick your brains without actually bothering you, ringing you up and sort of saying, Nathan, what do you think about this? To the point where I think, we've prepared a number of webinar materials where I've just gone ahead and, used your instance with all of your podcasts to identify, right, what's the top 5 challenges in the industry right now based upon your material. And it's enabled me to do so much more because it's almost like I've got my own private line into your brain to go, right, how do you phrase this? What's this term? What do you see as the major challenges? And again, coming back to it, we're not experts in heat pumps. You are. And therefore, why would I not want to tap into your expertise in order to sort of make sure that we're talking about the right challenges and we've got the right knowledge and we've got the right application in order to deal with that and help those in the field?
Well, I had great fun with that. So I think one of the first questions I typed in was, who is my favourite engineer? Well, did I have to? I think I might have to mention who I was. I said, who is Nathan's favourite engineer? And it came back with the correct answer. It said Steve Webster. I typed in something like a bit more technical and specific. I think I typed in, what is an EEV, which is an electronic expansion valve, and it came back with that. So obviously I've talked about, I mean, that's mainly used in sort of the air-to-air stuff we do. I typed in, what else did I type in? I typed in, I think, sort of a sciencey question, because I'm known for sort of trying to help people understand the difference between heat and temperature. So I typed that in, what's the difference? And it came back with a really, really good answer that shocked myself. I think, crikey, did I say it? And the interesting thing, while I was playing about with it, which made me think, is, so obviously I have guests on who usually are very super knowledgeable in their fields, which is great, because we're talking about this curated content. But I mean, I don't have control over what they say, and so there might be some. So if I was to use mine for what I was sort of a bit concerned about is there might be some wrong information even from my own podcast, if you know what I mean. But when we come to develop these curated content pieces, that's when we can have very, very what's the word I'm looking at? we can make sure it is extremely accurate. And this is where we can help manufacturers, and this is something that the manufacturers can get involved with us, isn't it? And really get this real accurate information curated.
There's a lovely. I always remember. I was a big fan of QI, the TV show with Stephen Fry. And every now and then they used to do a return episode where they would go, actually, we need to correct some points because what we said was true 3 years ago has now found out to be not true, or new pieces of information have been delivered, and therefore we need to address what's happened in the past. And that challenge exists in every industry, in every moment of time, that what we say today might not be right tomorrow. And so what we're looking to, what we've got with the curated data packs is the option to say this is a controlled set of information. Documents can come in and documents can go out. Manuals are a really good example where they go through. I think Sunsync have got some manuals that have gone through 43 iterations, are in multiple languages, and have different models and different versions. And so controlling all of that documentation is a real challenge. But you also then need to be reflective that some people will be using a slightly older model, and the manual for that slightly older model must be maintained. And therefore, the latest one cannot always be the only one that is available because they might be running different firmwares with different fault codes, et cetera, et cetera. So making sure that the information is relevant, is fresh, and is correct, it maintains that level of requirement of you need to be able to look after it. And that's where partnerships with OEMs start to come into play, because those are the ones that will be saying, this is now retired, this is still relevant, this is the latest technical fix. There will be very smart engineers who will have come across problems which won't be documented, who could then provide additional information and make that relevant. But what we need to be able to do is make sure that when data is being captured through voice or an entry from a participant, that we capture as much as we can so that we've got the right keywords to link it to that particular piece of equipment, that model, and everything else.
While I remember, Amrit, I'm going to come back to you in a minute just to ask a sort of techie question. What's the difference between AI and machine learning? But I want to pick up on Barrie, something you said, Barrie, a little bit earlier about the show, because the show's going to be way bigger than what it's previously been. It's going to be massive, and I really struggle to get around and see the people I want to see, which is a shame. And sometimes people contact me and say, Nathan, do you get to come and see us? And because I have quite a lot to do at the show, and because it is such a big show, this thing we're doing, we've teamed up with Installer Show, is basically there's sort of a few aspects to it. So any exhibitor there can provide you with all sorts of stuff. It's a free service. They can sales brochures, product data sheets, blog posts, articles, installer guides, case studies. The stuff that they don't have to do anything, create anything more, and that can then go into your system. So people at the show who can't get to a particular stand can sort of then go, kind of virtually go to the stand in a way, but also ask questions about who's doing batteries at the show, and
yeah.
So that's kind of a free service, and then there's a part where the OEMs can get a bit more involved in what we're doing with installer and this survey, isn't there? So just elucidate that point, I think, to make that clear again.
That's it. So with the share function or the contribution section where we have these open questions for individuals, we can have sponsorship that goes against some of those questions. So if you've got something in particular that you're interested in or want to explore and get the opinions from the floor, and I think it's up to, I think they're aiming for 30,000 attendees over the 3 days. I mean, it is by far one of the largest trade shows that's out there, and here we are with the right people to actually start doing some of that market research for. So yeah, if you've got a question that you are desperate to ask to your potential customers, and in an environment where we can support them with all of the necessary materials, then yeah, we would love to hear from you, and talk about some sponsorship of a question.
And installer shows kindly offer to have some runners, haven't they? Some of their people are going to be going around and getting people to sort of take part in this thing, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. We still got to agree the number, but there's going to be a good number. But it also there's nothing stopping you from using Lorefuly on the stand as well. So even if you are on the stand, you could ask the people that are visiting you to answer your own questions, so that there is that sort of encouragement to engage with your materials and with your stall and your exhibit in order to gather as much insights as possible.
And just to add to that, I mean, the great thing is that, the way the system's designed, it's not a case of, as you see with lots of surveys, you just answer a question and that's it. But this is very much kind of free form. So people talking, people sharing their sort of insights and their knowledge. There will be a lot of really interesting nuggets of wisdom there that we can surface and bring forward in a way. And I think one of the questions I sort of here sort of being asked is, well, I get loads of people coming to my stand. Do I really need sort of a question that's going out to everyone? And I think one of the sort of answers to that is, well, actually, it's 30,000, as Barry said, over 30,000 people expected at the show this year. There's no way you're going to get that many people coming to your stand as a sort of individual organization. And so if we can actually ask questions of as many of those people as possible, then actually we're getting a high degree of knowledge there.
There's also one other final point on this. We're aiming to have it open for use from the 18th of June, so before the show, and it can also be available after the show. So even those that are unable to attend can still attend virtually, can still contribute through Lorefuly without needing to be physically present as well.
And I'm conscious I didn't answer your question about sort of AI and as you called out a second ago, but just on that, so AI is a sort of is a system that's really there to try and mimic human behavior as much as possible. So the idea sort of AI is it incorporates different technologies, different techniques, all about sort of creating machines that can mimic our cognitive function as humans. So things like learning, problem solving, and so on. And machine learning is one of those techniques that fit within AI. So it's a particular type of technology that's a subset of AI in particular. And what machine learning does is it takes a lot of data and analyzes that data autonomously to create new behavior, accurate predictions, and decisions based on that data set itself. So machine learning is a type of, or it's a subset that feeds into AI, and large language models encompass quite a few of these different techniques. So it basically takes things like natural language processing, it analyzes data, so that machine learning aspect brings that all together and it's all mathematical. So what it's really doing is predicting what and giving you a probability on what the next word in a particular sentence should be in a sort of very simple way. So it analyzes all of that data, all of that sort of everything written, everything that's ever been sort of documented that's available, and then it will sort of say, okay, if I'm putting this sentence together, I think there's a high probability that the next word should be X, and then the next word should be Y, and then the next word should be Z. And it's because it's got so much underlying data. That's why it gives that quite good responses on quite a few different topics.
Is it a term that gets overused? I mean, I sometimes worry that I've overused the term AI. Is it a term that gets overused nowadays? Because it's a term, it's an unusual term. It's one, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe hardly anyone had heard of it. Now, I should imagine everyone's heard of the word.
Yeah, well, it's because of how companies like OpenAI with what they've done has been so revolutionary. But it's not an overnight thing. I mean, there have been years and years of research that's gone into this over a very long period of time. But it's both advancements in the hardware, so with computing power getting stronger, more available, and just exponentially better year on year. That's led to sort of the ability to do a lot of this processing and a lot of this work. I mean, there is definitely a sort of overuse of AI in general because it is the sort of hot technology at the moment, and you see this quite often with technology in general. Like whatever the latest trend is, like the gold rush. Everyone in America, everyone was rushing to sort of be part of that. And at the moment, it's similar for AI. So you get companies who don't do anything with AI at all, but call what they do AI, and that's quite interesting to see as well. But it's that I can't remember who said the quote. If it was it Warren Buffett? I can't remember, but he said when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming without any underwear on. So
Yeah, it's very. I mean, I'm the father of a sort of a young daughter, 12, and she, we chat about AI because it's when she gets to my age, for instance, which is a long way off. Um, it's going to be a huge part. We can't even conceive how much of a part it's going to be of humanity's lives.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you could say the same with social media as an example. When Facebook was coming on the scene, MySpace before that. If you asked someone all those years ago to predict what an impact it would have on society, you would never, in your wildest imagination, have said it has the power to change the course of elections and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, look what it's done to the latest generation. Like the latest generation, they have just a different way of consuming information. They have a different way of interacting with the world. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just different.
Mm.
And the world at the moment is not geared up. The world of work is not geared up to deal with that change. This is the generational divide. Yeah, I was talking to one firm that said the average residency of the latest generation worker is something like 26 months.
Mm.
And the age gap between the worker who's been there for a long time, is a company lifer, is sort of that sort of old guard,
Mm.
and the age of the new worker is increasing over time. And this is sort of one of the biggest challenges we've got in the way of working, where as these old guard, the people who just know everything, the people you go to for advice when your device isn't working, or you just don't know how to solve the technical problem, or whatever it may be, the people who just know everything, as they retire and move on, all of that knowledge goes with them. And
Mm.
there isn't that next generation to pass it to, because the turnover rate is so high.
Mm.
And it's all because of the way the world is designed. The latest generation worker, they don't see themselves being in a role for the whole of their career. They want to be doing so-called portfolio work. They want to be doing lots of different things at the same time.
Mm. It's quite sad, actually, when you think of it like that. Look, when people do retire, have got all this knowledge, it tends to get lots of it happened with my granddad. My granddad died in 2016. All his knowledge has kind of been lost. I can remember bits and pieces. My dad retired. I mean, maybe I should get my dad to record a load of stuff on oil combustion and capture his knowledge. It's because it is interesting. We're living in a world where knowledge can be captured quite easily now, and obviously we're going to be capturing knowledge sort of in real time at the show, and it can be done easily. This is why I like this whole thing of talk. You can talk into a device and capture it rather than fiddling about with keys on your computer or your phone. You can just sort of speak and just waffle on and get loads of stuff in there, which can then be extrapolated as very, very useful.
Absolutely. I think one of the other things that we just need to bear in mind is that those who are emerging into the market as the upcoming apprentices and graduates, is these are tech savvy generations.
Mm.
They are already using AI. They're already paying for it because it is making their life easier. And I saw a really interesting bit of research recently about how people are saying you're not now hiring individuals, you're actually hiring like production units. So an individual who is supported by a whole range of customized AI agents that sit behind them, so that you've got the human in the loop, but it is, leveraging their own custom artificial intelligence support units behind them to enable them to do work faster and to do it more quickly and more accurately and more specifics, leveraging the capability of AI. And that introduces quite an interesting piece around corporate IP and individual IP, because if I've set up those AI agents and I've paid for them and I'm leveraging them at work, how does that then start to fit into play? And so the need for companies to start to really think about that emerging talent that's coming into the market, what's their AI strategy, what's their policies upon the use of AI, and whether or not they're going to be happy for people to bring their own tools, or whether they want to actually establish these are the rules with AI and this is the tool set, so that there is degree of control that comes in from that corporate side. But companies that don't get on board with people using artificial intelligence, I think are going to find it really difficult to attract emerging talent, because they will be seen as being perhaps a little bit behind the curve, not necessarily responsive to the way that some people want to learn and incorporate these sorts of tools into their everyday life.
Mm. Oh, well, before I forget, Installer Show are going to be doing a special webinar with us, isn't it? Where we can actually explain to any of the exhibitors what we're doing and how they can get involved. Don't know. Do we have a
That's right.
date for that yet, Barry, or is that not?
No, that will be released very shortly.
And anyone that wants to sort of get in touch with us about what we're doing, they can do that via our email. Mine's learn@betateach.co.uk, and
Yeah,
Perhaps we can, as we, because the sort of event link for that will be live any day now, Nathan. So maybe
right,
if we could
okay,
update the show notes with
definitely.
a link to that, that'd be great as well.
Oh, and another thing I want to ask, because I'm just looking at Barry, because Barry wears glasses. Now, I think I should start wearing glasses. I'm going to have my eyes test. But someone replied on my post about the AI LinkedIn post I did the other day. It was either Aidan, who I did that alphabet testing of their LLM at Nesta, or was it Carbon Trust? But someone put about glasses. I don't think they just mentioned Google glasses either. I think they mentioned something like Ray-Ban glasses. And I mean, I don't know anything about this. Is this like a real thing now that people are going to be able to put glasses on? And I quite like the idea of Ray-Ban.
yeah, we've seen and we've actually been engaged with a firm to sort of do some experimentation with them over them doing the sort of virtual reality side, but through your own glasses. So they have a camera and some speakers, and inside the lenses is little screens that can produce text and write text up on the screen. So we were talking to them about an integration that says we'll host the curated data pack that's about that topic, and then that can be listening through the glasses, for the question, and then we can project either audibly the answer spoken by AI into their glasses frame, which is linked to their ear, or display it on a small screen in front of their lenses. It's technology that sort of already exists in that sense, that it's all about programming, but it being more responsive in certain situations. The example we were using was, a sports coach out in the field that's getting live streamed analytics information about players' own capabilities, their heart rates, and everything else, and then providing them with real-time recommendations that maybe that player needs a bit more of a rest. But then, if there was a safety incident, a player gets injured in a quite serious way, and that the coach there hasn't been the first aider, what is it that they should do, and how can we talk them through all of those sorts of scenarios? So there are certainly applications. It's just a lot more engaged and a lot more involved. And we really need to continue with that experimentation around how well would that actually work in the field for fixing things like heat pumps and boilers and doing installations, and really trying to make sure that that wasn't just a sort of a technology for technology's sake.
It's all going sci-fi, Barry, isn't it? It's all going Star Trek. Well, Blake, do you remember Blake Seven? That was are you old enough
I do, but I like to think of Lorefuly more as sort of more sort of matrixy,
Mm.
when Neo is on the chair and he's getting all of these skill sets uploaded into his brain through the Matrix, and you quite often hear me say I know Kung Fu, because it will be a case of I could just load that information into Lorefuly and away we go.
Oh, and also you went to a show recently, didn't you? Just to test test the
Yeah.
software and test the capability of people speaking into devices
Yeah.
at a show where there's obviously ambient noise and stuff?
Absolutely. It was a great day. I went to the commercial vehicle show at the NEC. It's as close as I'm going to get to the installer show size and same sort of hall and infrastructure. And I'm pleased to say our testing went wonderfully. It delivered better than I thought it was going to do. And only when I was stood directly in front of one of the speakers that was projecting the audio from a talk, I had a decibel reader with me, and that was at 94 decibels. Did it sort of fall over and not pick up? But in the ambience of the hall, I was super pleased with how well it was picking up my voice just through holding the phone in a sort of a normal, proximity to my face, and I didn't have to shout in it at all.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you ever so much for coming on. I'm really excited about teaming up with you, and it looks like there's going to be a bright future. And I'm really looking forward to this whole thing. We're doing it with the installer show, and like Amit, you just suggested, there'll be a link in my show notes where if you want to get involved, you can hit that link, and it'll take you to lots more info. Guys, thank you ever so much, and yeah, we'll be seeing each other soon in sunny June, at the end of June, won't we?
Absolutely.
Oh, wait, Nathan, it's going to be fantastic.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Thanks, Nathan.
Bye.